Princess Celestia, the Changeling Queen, by Vrin 55. Chapter 22. The Covenant takes shape. If you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner. Nelson Mandela. In the warm candlelight, Alternia smiled as she scanned the day's notes with half-shut eyes. 3 days after Syndra had reconciled with chrysalis, Alternia and the Queen had finally managed to hammer out more of the treaty's details. Specifically, they had covered several clauses that would not only mandate aid to be given to ponies dealing with the trauma of the Changeling invasions, it would also allow changelings who had suffered under the ponies' hooves to be given psychological help and counseling. What's more, the program would spearhead activities and events helping ponies to get used to the changeling presence and helping changelings to integrate among ponies. As far as Alternia was concerned, it was a stunning achievement. Ponies and changelings were staying up to celebrate through the rest of the day away. Luna, Cadence, Shining Armor, and Blue Blood were playing some sort of role-playing game that Alternia had never quite picked up upon. Was it called Oubliettes and Ogres? I don't know. Alternia shrugged. All she knew was that the last time she had checked on Luna's chambers, Blue Blood had apparently rolled a 1 for initiative, which had led to a concerted groan from the party. Meanwhile, her sister had gone for a walk with Syndra and Lamia. Alternia still felt a bit guilty, knowing she had played a part in causing the rift in the first place. And chrysalis wasn't letting Celestia forget it either. While she had become more diplomatic during the meetings, chrysalis had scowled at the equestrians. Nevertheless, Alternia was glad that her niece reconciled with her mother. Sighing, Alternia stretched up her hoofs and proceeded to scratch a spot on her head, right behind her horn. It would be right where her antenna would be if she was a fully ascended changeling queen. Alternia rubbed that point on her carapace, but the itch wouldn't go away. Trying a different approach, Alternia reluctantly pulled her hoof back and shut her eyes. For a while, Alternia sat motionless in her seat. The only sign of movement was the rising and falling of her chest and her furrowing brow. The frown suddenly vanished, and at the same time, Alternia's eyes shot open. A burst of magic flung the doors open, and Alternia charged towards the southern wall of Camp Draco, the wall where chrysalis said she was going to take her daughters to. Chrysalis smiled as the cold afternoon air filled her carapace. It was a pleasant experience that eased all the worries and stress she had accumulated over the course of the day. And then again, most of them weren't that significant. Or perhaps her happiness at having her 2 daughters standing beside her was making her lackadaisical. Chrysalis didn't care at the moment. Neither did Syndra or Lamia. The family just walked silently next to each other, enjoying the night and each other's company.
Wow, I never realized you could see so far from here,
said Syndra, gazing over the battlements.
Indeed,
Chrysalis remarked. The small family and their guards watched the golden glow of the setting sun play on the desert sands in silence. The view was only marred by a small group of flies that buzzed around the battlements.
Syndra,
Chrysalis asked.
can I ask you a question?
At her daughter's nod, Chrysalis turned her gaze back towards the desert.
I wanted to ask you if Lamia had told you about your other aunties and your grandmother.
Chrysalis allowed herself to smirk slightly as Syndra shook her head, her eyes wide with surprise. I told Lamia and the princesses about my family one night during dinner. You should all know about your family history as well. I'm sorry, Queen Chrysalis, but I'm going to have to interrupt you. Chrysalis spun around to see Celestia striding towards her, followed by several pony guards. Celestia's features were serene, but Chrysalis sensed that she was worried. One of the base's new proximity wards was triggered. Did you order any changelings to come to the base? A frown etched itself on Chrysalis's features, and she shook her head, dislodging a fly that had landed on her ear. No. Are you sure it isn't one of your pony contingents? No. The Equestrian Foreign Legion arrived yesterday, as did the supply caravan. There should be nothing coming to the base, especially at this time of night. Chrysalis snarled at Celestia, whose features remained impassive as ever. Unless some pony wanted to attack the base. Queen Chrysalis, Equestria First would have to be incredibly stupid to attack the base proper, especially after their first attempt failed. I was thinking more along the lines of some changeling. For a moment, Chrysalis's eyes widened. Did you consult any other changeling hives before you attacked Canterlot? Chrysalis bit back a snort. No. Why would I need to? Suddenly, the air grew hot as several columns of green fire flared into life on the battlements. For a moment, everybody stared at them before springing into motion. Chrysalis stepped closer to her daughters, her horn glowing. Celestia stepped in beside her, magically summoning a halberd in a burst of light. Ponies and changeling guards quickly flanked their rulers. All the while, Chrysalis wondered where in Tartarus the changelings came from, until she noticed the one thing absent from the whole scene. The flies! Gritting her teeth, Chrysalis got ready to fire at the attackers once they completed their transformation. The fire faded away, revealing 10 changelings. One of them was tall and slender, slightly below Chrysalis's own height. Chrysalis frowned as she saw her appear, and then she gasped. While it had been years since she had seen this queen, Chrysalis immediately recognized her. Simulacrus? Is that you? In contrast to Chrysalis's wide-eye reverence, Simulacrus's lips were drawn back, and her fangs gleamed in the darkness. Yes, sister, Simulacrus gasped as Chrysalis seized her in an embrace so tight her carapace joints were hard creaking. Simulacrus struggled and squirmed, but Chrysalis's grip was iron. That is until the younger queen squeaked. I need to speak to Princess Celestia. Chrysalis froze, her eyes wide as she wondered if her sister was joking. Using that moment, Simulacrus freed herself from Chrysalis's numb grasp, strode past Syndra, Lamia, and the astounded chevaliers, making her way to Celestia. As she neared Celestia, though, there was a flash as Chrysalis teleported in front of her sister. Simulacrus, stop! What's going on? Her eyes moist with tears, Simulacrus glared at Chrysalis. What's going on? Chrysalis, my hive's about to be attacked by 200 pony extremists! Chrysalis spluttered.
What?
Simulacris cut her sister off with a hiss.
Thanks to your invasion of Canterlot, you revealed our entire species to the world. Did you even think about the consequences, chrysalis? Now get out of my way.
The horror that engulfed Chrysalis nearly robbed her of speech. Concern overrode her shock, though, and she managed to get her locked jaw to move. Her ears shooting up and pointing forward, Chrysalis met her sister's hysterical eyes. To her surprise, Chrysalis felt as much terror and sympathy coming from Celestia as she herself felt. She gave the princess a surreptitious glance. She hadn't expected that strong of a reaction from a non-changeling.
How did they find your hive? The last time you met, you told me that your hive was hidden very well. They've been combing the desert for weeks. Ever since your attack on Canterlot, no changeling has been safe.
Chrysalis' eyes narrowed.
My hive is getting by.
Simulacris snorted in derision.
Of course yours would. Given that the army you put together to attack Canterlot with, I doubt anything could jeopardize the safety of your hive. But thanks to you enraging every pony in Equestria, my hive can't get the love it needs. We've been starving, unable to do anything as the ponies closed in.
Chrysalis's calm facade broke and she gawked at the gaunt features of her younger sister. Her hair was uncombed and unhealthily thin. The holes in her legs looked so wide that the leg itself seemed about to break at any moment. A glance sideways at the changelings accompanying Simulacris only confirmed her initial observation. These changelings hadn't been fed properly in weeks. All that time she'd been planning for her invasion, Chrysalis had never truly considered the effect it would have on the other changeling hives in Equestria. The realization that she had driven her sister to this state nearly knocked Chrysalis to the ground. Her head lowered, Chrysalis looked up at her sister, a pleading note in her voice.
I'll have a company of warriors sent to your hive. Just tell me where it is.
Simulacris's glare softened.
Thank you, sister, but it is Equestria's aid I seek. I know you want to help, and while I said nothing can jeopardize your hive, I can't expect you to protect mine as well. If I concede my hive, at least it will be protected under official terms and by the Equestrian army.
Chrysalis's eyes widened.
You would trust the ponies over your own sister? The princesses can't even control their own subjects. I was nearly killed less than a week ago.
She didn't care that Celestia was standing right behind her. She was not going to let her sister's hive be annexed.
And whose fault was that? You provoked their subjects and attacked their capital. But since the princesses are keeping you alive, of all changelings, they must be trustworthy.
Retorted Simulacris. Snarling, Chrysalis pointed her hoof at Lamia.
Trustworthy? These ponies were responsible for crippling my daughter and heir when she first tried to negotiate with them. They practically declared war on us right then and there.
Simulacris frowned. When her eyes wandered along the direction of her sister's hoof, they expanded to the size of plates. Chrysalis smirked slightly at this, but to her own bewilderment, Simulacris returned her look with a dagger-filled glare.
You reveal the existence of every changeling in the world for a personal vendetta?
Simulacris roared, deafening Chrysalis. Confounded, Chrysalis shook her head as she tried to process why in the world her sister was so furious at her. Was her anger not justified? Why couldn't she deal some form of retribution for her daughter?
I know you wanted revenge, but just because your daughter was hurt by the ponies does not mean that you hold the right to doom every changeling in Equestria. My hive and every other changeling hive in the world are paying for your actions. Now get out of my way!
Simulacrus flared her tattered wings and hissed at her sister. When Chrysalis flinched and reflexively stepped backward, Simulacrus took this opportunity to shove past her sister. In just 3 steps, the younger queen was standing before Celestia. Though she did not know what to do, and doubted she could change anything, Chrysalis fixed Celestia with a death stare. However, the alicorn's neutral expression showed no sign that she had even seen her. After a brief moment of what seemed like silent preparation, Simulacrus sighed and prostrated herself in front of Celestia, her muzzle touching the floor, and neck extended in the traditional changeling gesture of total surrender. Chrysalis was so shocked at her sister's complete submission. She barely saw Celestia's own eyes widen.
Princess Celestia, I, Simulacrus of the Shadestalkers, concede my hive and my territory to Equestria on the condition that you protect my subjects from all forms of hostile aggression. Will you accept these terms?
I do not know how I managed to retain any control over my emotions or faculties. For despite the years that had passed, I could still recognize Simulacrus's features. I still could see the adolescent changeling queen she had been. But what used to be a proud, albeit reserved and sometimes cold changeling queen was no more. Instead, all I could see was my exhausted and battered sister groveling in front of me. Not for the first time, I called upon the Great Hive Mothers to curse this mask I had to wear. If I didn't have to wear it, I would have seized my sister in an embrace. As it was, I steeled myself and spoke, hoping my voice wasn't quavering.
I do not accept your terms. What? Why?
I winced at my younger sister's shriek of desperation. Chrysalis stared at me disbelievingly, and while I could feel her happiness that I had refused, I also sensed her worry for the safety of Simulacrus's hive.
Your hive lives within equestrian territory, correct?
Simulacrus blinked as she realized what I was thinking.
Yes. Then you do not need to surrender to me, as I already have the right to send troops to that area to enforce peace. Of course, that would mean you'd have to tell me the location of your hive.
Simulacrus nodded in resignation.
Your ponies have already found my hive, Your Highness. And if I must sacrifice my pride to save it, then so be it.
She looked me in the eye.
My hive is located in the hills just south of Baltimore.
I knew that place. I had, on one occasion, wondered if it would be a good location for a changeling hive. I suppose I had my answer now. I turned to Shining Armor.
Captain, what assets do we have in the area?
2 companies of Royal Guard. I blinked. How did Shining manage to get 2 companies there so quickly? My captain coughed. The Royal Guard has been on high alert since the last incident. So when Rains informed me last night that their local monitoring unit received word about a possible rogue militia unit that plans to deviate from its planned training schedule,
I immediately radioed Baltimore HQ to muster 2 companies and had them directed to the area in order to intercept them.
I nodded, inwardly applauding the Royal Equestrian Intelligence and Naval Services Network.
Understood.
I was about to say more, but instead frowned and glanced at Simulacris.
Queen Simulacris, just how did you find out about the upcoming attack?
Simulacris raised an eyebrow.
We've been monitoring your newspapers. Once we were aware of the pony extremists, our infiltrators began to scour the cities for these extremists, and we increased our perimeter patrols. 2 nights ago, they tracked a small group of armed ponies searching the area around our hive. The patrol cast disguises and tried to divert them away, but the ponies didn't fall for the bait and attacked us. My changelings were revealed and the ponies escaped. We were discussing possible responses last night when one of our changeling infiltrators overheard a bar conversation between a local militia commander and an Equestrian First member he had been tailing. He found out about their plans and immediately flew back to my hive.
Simulacris gritted her teeth.
If his information is right, then they should only be a few hours away.
I started to make my way off the wall.
Then, we have no time to lose. Queen Simulacris, I am aware that the changelings have excellent portal creation abilities. Can you open a portal to the area where our Royal Guard units are located so we can rendezvous with them?
Simulacris snorted.
And how do you expect me to do that on an empty stomach, Celestia? I have a spell that allows changelings to feed off the latent energy that is focused on me.
I stepped toward Simulacris, who cringed slightly. I stopped immediately and smiled.
It's perfectly safe, Your Majesty. Just touch your horn with mine.
Simulacris nodded tentatively and relaxed. Slowly I rested my horn on one of the crooks of hers and closed my eyes. Of course, there was no such spell, and I was lying through my teeth. What I really did was funnel my love energy through my horn. My crown's illusion spell would disguise it with Celestia's magic signature. It would look like I cast a spell, but in reality, I was just sharing my love energy for Simulacris to feed upon. The moment my magic met her horn, Simulacris' eyes widened. Her own horn lit itself as she began to draw in my energy as fast as possible. Luckily, I had stored my love throughout the years, so even when Simulacris began to hungrily gorge herself on my energy, I wasn't too bothered. I thought I would have to ask Simulacris to stop, but after several minutes, she pulled away from my horn. Her eyes shining much brighter and her figure looking less haggard than before.
Feeling better?
I asked. Simulacris nodded, taking deep breaths as she examined herself.
Yes, much better.
I nodded back.
Can you make the portal then?
Simulacris lit her horn, looking eager to begin.
With some preparations, easily. Good.
I spun around to face Shining.
Captain Armor, inform the base commander that we're going, and then get your arms. I need to take my armor out.
I turned back and headed for the door, and started to make my way off the wall.
Then, we have no time to lose. Queen Simulacris, I'm aware the changelings have excellent portal creation abilities. Can you open a portal to the area where our Royal Guard units are located so we can rendezvous with them?
Simulacris snorted.
And how do you expect me to do that on an empty stomach, Celestia? I have a spell that allows a changeling to feed off the latent love energy that is focused on me.
I stepped toward Simulacris, who cringed slightly. I stopped immediately and smiled.
It's perfectly safe, Your Majesty. Just touch your horn with mine.
Simulacrus nodded tentatively and relaxed. Slowly, I rested my horn on one of the crooks of hers and closed my eyes. Of course, there was no such spell. I was lying through my teeth. What I really did was funnel my love energy through my horn. My crown's illusion spells would disguise it with Celestia's magic signature. It would look like I cast a spell. But in reality, I was just sharing my love energy for Simulacrus to feed upon. The moment my magic met her horn, Simulacrus's eyes widened. Her horn lit itself and she began to draw in my energy as fast as possible. Luckily, I had stored my love throughout the years, so even when Simulacrus began to hungrily gorge herself on my energy, I wasn't even too bothered. I thought I would have to ask Simulacrus to stop. After several minutes, she pulled away from my horn, her eyes shining much brighter and her figure looking less haggard than before.
Feeling better?
I asked. Simulacrus nodded, taking deep breaths as she examined herself.
Yes, much better.
I nodded back.
Can you make the portal then?
Simulacrus lit her horn, looking eager to begin.
With some preparations, easily. Good.
I spun around to face shining.
Captain Armor, inform the base commander that we're going, and then get your arms. I need to take my armor out.
I turned back and headed for the door. As I walked past Chrysalis and her daughters, something caught my attention. I sensed anguish, confusion, and guilt radiating off my sister's form. It made me stop in mid-step. I need not list the transgressions Chrysalis had committed against me and Equestria. However, I didn't want Simulacrus to lose another family member. She had already lost Mother, though she probably didn't know it, and I was as good as lost. I could not let her or any other changeling know about my existence, or about what I had done through the last 1,000 years. It upset everything I ever worked for, not to mention the peace process itself.
Queen Chrysalis, we could use all the help we can get in this upcoming battle. If you are worried about your love, I can allow you to feed as well.
I saw Chrysalis's lips part slightly out of surprise, but she quickly closed them.
Of course.
Hey, so I'm going to be doing this one in 2 parts. I'm getting back into this after, several days off. I have been busy as all heck. It's currently, 6 in the morning. This is going up in, 12 in the afternoon. So, this is going up in 6 hours. I need to get to bed before I have to go to work. This is going to be a 2-parter just for that reason, but overall, I thank you for your patience, and no, I have not forgotten about this. I will cover it. Don't worry about it. That being said, my voice is definitely not in its best position right now. Anyways, thank you. And I apologize.